On today's show, Houston Rockets schedule release, why this schedule is so much better than last season's schedule, how they have a chance to get off to a great start, plus Jalen Green participating in every open run under the sun this summer, what that says about the leap that he's possibly going to take here in year 3, as well as some unfortunate news with Jock Landale suffering an injury in FIBA action, but that there might be a silver lining behind the injury. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
Throw it up to Jalen Green.
Sengun here in the short roll. Oh, my, that's the no-look.
Jabari for 3 and the win. Yeah!
Look at Tari, Eason. Cooking.
Here comes Tari.
No!
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
The Houston Rockets select Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
One thing I have never done is not made the playoffs, and so we want to take that step here as well.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on the way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making LOR part of your day every single day. It's that exciting time of year. Every year, we get a morsel of NBA news during the dry months, and that is the schedule drop. And it's always so much fun when the NBA schedule drops because, for me, just as a personal anecdote, it controls my life for roughly 8 to 9 months out of the year. So it's kind of nice being able to take a look and have an understanding of, okay, this is what my life's going to look like for 9 months out of the year. And I'm sure that many diehard Rockets fans can resonate with that, fans who watch all 82 games regardless, rain or shine. I have the utmost respect for people who do follow the team all season long, regardless of the wins, the losses, the highs, lows, all of it. That's what's, so awesome about being a diehard fan. But let's go ahead and navigate through some of the takeaways from this year's schedule release. The very first thing that stands out, and this is the most important takeaway here, is I think the Rockets got an incredibly favorable schedule this year. Remember last season, the Rockets, 10 of their first 13 games were all on the road. It's like they had the cards, like the deck was stacked against them from the jump. They didn't have a chance to gain any momentum out of the gate. They didn't have a chance to really come together and gain, build any chemistry or consistency in the early part of that season because, one, this is an incredibly young team, and then two, young teams need practice time. And when you're on the road, when you're traveling constantly game to game to game, it makes it impossible to be able to schedule any practices because players are just exhausted from travel, this, that, and the other thing. So this year's schedule, I think, is incredibly friendly when you look at how the Rocket season starts. They're on the road for the first 2 games. So the season opener is on the road against the Orlando Magic, which is going to be such an exciting game. Then their second game of the season is also on the road against the San Antonio Spurs. So that's Wednesday and Friday to start the season. Wednesday the 25th, Friday the 27th. Magic, then Spurs, so you get Paolo Banchero, and then you get Victor Wembanyama, back-to-back games to start the season. An awesome slate to start the Rockets off this year, but then they come home for a 7-game homestand. That 7-game homestand to start the season is going to be so beneficial for a young team compared to the 10 of 13 on the road that they had this past season. So I love that they got that as far as just how their year is going to start. And then as you look through the rest of the schedule, they've actually got another 7-game homestand at the tail end of December, and then kind of bleeding into January a little bit, they've only got one really bad road trip this season, and it comes right after their 7-game homestand. So they'll be at home for 7 games in December, December, January, and then they go on the road for 6 games, and it's basically their East Coast swing where they have Miami, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, Philly, and New York, all 6 of those games in one road trip. That's the longest road trip they have all season. It's the only really bad road trip. The next longest road trip they have, 4 games. That's it. 4 games later on in the beginning of February where they do Minnesota, Indiana, Toronto, and Atlanta. And then past that, the most the Rockets are ever on the road is 3 games or less at a time everywhere else throughout the season. That is really favorable for a young team to not have to deal with multiple super duper extended road trips where they just lose out on such valuable practice time, all that. And again, the one really bad road trip that they have comes at kind of the midway point of the season, right? Hopefully they've kind of gotten their feet wet a little bit, settled into what Ime Udoka is trying to build and establish here in Houston. And that road trip, that East Coast swing, isn't going to be as brutal as it would be if it had happened earlier in the season in the November, December part of the year. So I honestly really like how this next season's schedule is shaping up for the Rockets. Couple other notes here. They've got 14 sets of back-to-back games on this next season's schedules. No New Year's Eve game for the Rockets for the first time in what feels like years, well over a decade. I mean, the Rockets have always had a New Year's Eve game. I don't know if it stretches back longer than 2 decades. I should have looked it up to see when the last time the Rockets didn't have a New Year's Eve game, but it's been it's been a thing for years now. So it's kind of weird seeing the Rockets have New Year's Eve off. Also, no Christmas Day game for the Houston Rockets yet again on the schedule. They're going to have to get back to being a good basketball team before they're given one of the primetime slots on Christmas Day. For me, I am so looking forward. I already mentioned it, but the 2 games to start the year against Orlando, against San Antonio, that's going to be so much fun seeing this young core go up against Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and then with San Antonio having Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that for those first 2 games of the year. And then the home opener against the Golden State Warriors. It's kind of a catch-22 because it's going to be awesome. It's like a ton of energy in the building going up against the Warriors for the first home game of the year. Unfortunately, it also means that all the Warriors fans that somehow try to call themselves Houstonians are going to be out in droves for that game. So should be an energy-packed game, should be a ton of fun. On the Wembanyama front, the Rockets do have their preseason games, so they've got 5 preseason games this year. They start off the first 2 at home against Indiana and New Orleans, October 10th and 12th. However, I apologize. The New Orleans game is actually going to be played in Birmingham, Alabama. It's not actually at Toyota Center, even though it's listed as a home game on the schedule. Then they play 2 games on the road against the San Antonio Spurs. So the Rockets will get 3 looks at Victor Wembanyama within like a 2-week period on the schedule. So a lot of Wemby action very, very early on for the Rockets. I highly suggest if you're a Rockets fan and you want to be able to get multiple glimpses at the Rockets and Victor Wembanyama, to look into getting some tickets for the 2 games that they play against San Antonio. It's Monday the 16th of October and then Wednesday the 18th of October. San Antonio, quick drive down the street, take the next day off work, all that good stuff. Should be a ton of fun in the early going of the schedule for the Rockets. Coming up, want to get into a few more of the standout games on the schedule, as well as some predictions for just the first 10 games of the season and how the Rockets could get off to an above 500 start, actually, this next year, as well as Jalen Green participating in every single open run of the summer, and an unfortunate injury to Jock Landale, but that there might be a silver lining behind that injury. We're going to get to all that stuff in just a moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off. Well, it's not even about to kick off. It's started. It's happening right now. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now when you bet on a Super Bowl 58 winner, you get bonus bets every single time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every single victory along the way. Right now, we take a look at the Super Bowl 58 betting favorites. Kansas City Chiefs at plus 600 to win it all this year. The Philadelphia Eagles at plus 800. Rounding out the top five, you have the Buffalo Bills at plus 900. They're creeping up there a little bit. The Bengals at plus 1,000 and the 49ers at plus 1,000. Now, if you're feeling a little adventurous, maybe you're really bought in on CJ Stroud, then you can go down to the Texans at plus 18,000. Not even 18,000. Is that 180,000? I can't even read the digits on this. No, it is plus 18,000. Plus 18,000 for the Houston Texans to win the Super Bowl this season. So again, bet on any of those teams to win the Super Bowl as they win throughout the regular season. You'll get bonus bets that you can use on spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets. Now, a couple other games on this schedule that I am so absolutely looking forward to. Definitely the first game of the season against the Detroit Pistons. That one is going to be so much fun. So that's January 1st. So New Year's Day, the Rockets will be playing against the Detroit Pistons at home in Toyota Center. That's going to be a ton of fun, right? The Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham rivalry renewed, hopefully renewed with Cade Cunningham hopefully returning from injury and being healthy this season. So that matchup, that little rivalry is going to be fantastic. And then it'll be the first chance to have us see Amen Thompson and Ausar Thompson go head-to-head as NBA players. So I'm absolutely looking forward to that matchup as well. And then it was a little weird. The Rockets don't actually play the OKC Thunder until after the All-Star break. It's really late to get into the year and to not play a team all the way in, for your first time playing a team all the way post All-Star break, at least in your conference, right? Sometimes it's a little bit more common to happen with the Eastern Conference team since you only played them twice, but to only play OKC starting after the All-Star break, I joked the other day that it was the NBA master scheduler just giving Chet Holmgren a chance to knock off that rookie dust, or rookie rust, I should say, before having to go up against Jabari Smith Jr. and the Houston Rockets. So really looking forward to basically every game against, teams with the other young players that match up with, Jalen Green from his draft class, Jabari from his draft class, Amen Thompson from his draft class, just all the other young competition in the NBA. Those are the games that I'm most looking forward to specifically. I also want to give a little bit of credit here before getting into the first 10 games of the season and how the Rockets could reasonably start out of the gate above 500 this year, which would be a far cry better than what happened the last 3 years. It'd be so exciting to see this team get off to an above 500 start. And I think it's actually possible. But I also want to give credit to the Rockets digital social media team for the video that they threw together for the schedule release. It featured Jabari Smith Jr. It was just a ton of fun. Jabari's calling up a bunch of clutches, sitting in the boardroom trying to talk to them about what they were going to do for the schedule release video. And all the clutches are making gestures and they've got their hands going and it's a ton of fun. Because Clutch doesn't talk. I'm sorry. It was dumb, but it was funny. And it was a cute little schedule release video. Rockets didn't do anything big for it this year like they did last season with all the new draftees. I will say, as much as it pains me to say this, but it doesn't affect their draft capital, so it's all good. The Brooklyn Nets, I thought, stole the show with their schedule release video. I guess they went out to like the pier and they asked random strangers to pick the names for NBA teams. And I'm telling you that that was some of the funniest, original content that I guess I'd seen in so long from an NBA team. They were just having a ton of fun out there. The Rockets got called the Pennsylvania Phillies when somebody was shown the Rockets logo. It does kind of look like there's a P in there. Like if you look inside the R and you kind of knock off like the one leg, clearly it's an R, but I can also see how somebody doesn't know NBA logos would absolutely pick that as the Pennsylvania Phillies. So yeah, we're locked on Phillies here now. Locked on the Pennsylvania Phillies, I should say. It's the new name for your Houston Rockets. Now, as we take a look at this schedule and we scale things back and go to look at the first 10 games of the year, already talked about the first 3. So on the road against Orlando, then San Antonio, then you have the home opener against Golden State. I think when you look at what this Rockets roster should be capable of this season, they're going to be favored against Orlando and San Antonio, or at least they should be favored against both of those two teams right out of the gate with the veteran additions that they made. And again, all three of these teams having incredibly young cores. I think the Rockets should be favored because they've got the most veteran pieces around their young guys and should be able to make some noise right out of the gate with Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks joining this lineup. So I like their odds in those first two games. Also, I honestly like their odds in the home opener against Golden State, right? They're going to be amped, juiced up because it's the home opener in front of the Rockets fans. And then last year, the Golden State Warriors were abysmal on the road, right? They were a terrible road team. They're an older, more veteran team. It's kind of common for those teams to come out of the gate a little bit more sluggish. I would not be shocked for Golden State to kind of maybe phone it in is the wrong word, but I think the Rockets are going to be able to blow the roof off the joint in that game against the Golden State Warriors. So that's Sunday, the 29th. At that point, I've got the Rockets going 3-0 so far. And then the Charlotte Hornets come to town. And the Hornets just weren't a very good team last year, right? I don't expect the Hornets to suddenly be this amazing 500 ball club. Yes, they'll have their top rookie in Brandon Miller. Yes, they'll have all the other young talent. They'll have LaMelo, like all of this, right? But I think as far as odds go and the chances for the Rockets to win that game, I like the way that they can match up against the Charlotte Hornets, right? It was embarrassing for them to lose against Charlotte this past season, especially when they lost LaMelo halfway through the game, but that was the Rockets at the peak of their dysfunction this past year. It's a very different Rockets team now. So I think you're looking at a world where those first four games, conceivably the Rockets start the season off 4-0. It would not shock me because I don't think any of those teams are just overwhelming favorites against the Rockets right out of the gate. In fact, I think the Rockets are favorites in 3 out of those 4 games. Then you get to the first set of games back-to-back against an opponent, not actual back-to-back games, but just back-to-back same opponent, those little mini-series in the NBA landscape now. You got the Sacramento Kings for games 5 and 6. I think you could easily split that series between the Kings because whether you come out guns blazing, you win that first game, and then Sacramento adjusts in game 2, you also have the vice versa of that, right? Where maybe the Rockets fall a little flat in that first game against the Kings, but they use it as a building block, they use it as a lesson, and then they build on the mistakes that they made in that first game, go back, take the Kings in the second game of the little mini-series. At that point, splitting that series puts the Rockets at 5-1 to start the year. And then it's these next batch of opponents where things start to dial up a little bit more. Now, you've got the Lakers coming to town, then the Pelicans, then the Denver Nuggets, and the Lakers and Nuggets kind of follow the same rule, I think, as the Golden State Warriors. They're veteran teams. They're teams that are, the Nuggets are probably still going to be suffering a little bit of a championship hangover. Would not surprise me to see guys kind of like load managed at that early point in the season. Who knows? Those teams could be susceptible to a couple losses just based on some of those factors. But as you're kind of perusing the rest of these games, and then the 10th game technically starts the first leg of the Rockets' second road trip of the year, and they start against the LA Clippers. All those teams are teams that have playoff aspirations, that want to make it back to the playoffs, that are probably going to be in the playoffs more than likely between the Lakers, Pelicans, Nuggets, and Clippers, and even the Beam team, right? That second half of 5 games does kind of get a little bit more difficult. But even if the Rockets take one of those games after starting 5-1, if you actually handle business on the first chunk of the schedule against the easier teams, then there's a world where the Rockets could start the season 6-4, which is a slightly above 500 pace. And that would be just a miraculous world of difference compared to where this team has been and how much they've struggled in general, but especially struggled at the start of the season these past couple years. So I think there's a very realistic possibility for the Rockets to get off to a really strong start and have that momentum to help kind of propel them into this next season and into phase 2 of their rebuilding timeline, where hopefully they're making it back and at least discussing meaningful basketball after, say, January this year. That's kind of a low bar, but hopefully we're still talking about them being in the play-in playoff hunt come January of this next season. Coming up, want to get into some thoughts on Jalen Green participating in basically every open run of the offseason. Jabari Smith Jr. as well. They've both been so incredibly active. And then Jock Landale, an unfortunate injury happening to him in FIBA play. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets. Also, I am the absolute worst because I kept wanting to mention it in segment 1, and then I told myself in between the segments, I'll mention it at the top of segment 2, and then I didn't. Please let me know in the YouTube comments, which games are you most excited for on the Rockets schedule? Which rematch do you most want to see? Which revenge game do you want to come back and have the Rockets put their stamp on an opposing team after how things went last season? Let me know the 3 games that you're most excited for on the schedule this year for the Houston Rockets. Put it in the YouTube comments. Now, let's start with some positive notes here. Jalen Green has been in basically, it feels like every single open run of the offseason. And when you compare it from like this offseason, what we're seeing compared to last offseason, it felt like we barely got any Jalen Green footage or open run highlights. It felt like he was almost a ghost most of the offseason. Now, that's not to say that Jalen wasn't somewhere hitting the gym, putting in work, getting shots up, all that stuff, but I think it exudes a different level of confidence seeing Jalen actively participating in all these open runs across America, right? He's in the Rico Hines runs. He's done some runs in Houston. He's done some runs out in California. He's just bouncing around the country, getting into every open run that he possibly can find. He's going to be at the crossover this upcoming weekend on Sunday, so be on the lookouts for some incredible highlights there. And what it says about him is, one, I talked about exuding a level of confidence, right? It also inspires some confidence within the fan base, right? To see Jalen putting in this immense amount of work, even though he was probably putting in just as much work last summer, albeit maybe in a different capacity, hitting the gym maybe a lot more, right? To bulk up and be bigger and stronger coming into his second year. Just a different level of work done for Jalen Green. But seeing all the workouts, right? Seeing the highlight videos, it really helps fans get excited for the season and excited for hopefully what we see is this massive year 3 leap that Jalen Green is poised to take this next season. But then I think you also look at Jabari Smith Jr., right? He's participating in all these different runs, getting in work. We saw Jabari checking Jabari Smith Jr. during the Rico Hines runs, and even though Kevin Durant got the did I double up on Jabari's name there? Am I having a brain fart? Maybe I am. Okay, sorry. Jabari was guarding KD. I hope I said that already. I'm like all over the place. And even though KD was cooking Jabari on some of these possessions, Jabari, you see the physical tools that he has, right? He is at least bothering KD a little bit, right? And as Jabari gets older, as he gets more comfortable, as he becomes more experienced, right? You can see there's a world where Jabari's frame and body and his foot speed, agility, the way that he was able to kind of keep with KD, I mean, he's going to be a Swiss Army knife down the line who's going to cause a lot of defensive problems, because if that had basically been anybody other than KD trying to get those shots off on Jabari, I think it might have resulted in a block with just how towering Jabari seems in some of these highlight videos. Now, again, it's an open run. Take it with a grain of salt, but it's still not. It's the time of year where we're supposed to be getting unreasonably hyped about the team and excited about the, you know what? The Rockets are going 82-0 this year. I've seen enough. I'm calling it. Jabari Smith Jr. is going to be the MVP of this next season. No, I kid. But I think it also, like, it shows that maybe there's some, like, respect with the other players in the league, right? When you see Jalen Green out there getting shots up with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, some of the legends in today's game, right? Guys with these insane NBA profiles, and for Jalen and Jabari to be around those guys this offseason and getting those types of workouts in, you're going to get invaluable information, right? Playing alongside the greats is how you become one of the greats. Playing against NBA competition is how these young guys go from being exciting prospects to exciting NBA players. So more basketball is never a bad thing for these young guys. And I just love the work that we're seeing Jalen and Jabari put in. And not just those two guys, right? Tari Eason has been in a bunch of runs this offseason. We're seeing Alperen and Sengun put in the work with the FIBA team. We're seeing Cam Whitmore get in a lot of work as well. I am maybe a little slightly concerned that we haven't seen Amin Thompson getting in any work, any open run footage, that kind of stuff. I've reached out in a couple spots because I want to know. We haven't gotten any medical updates on Amin Thompson since Summer League, so I am curious if maybe the ankle injury was a little bit worse than the Rockets thought. There's a distinct possibility of that since we haven't heard anything. Hopefully I can get an answer for us and get some things cleared up, and we get some good news that Amen has been working out and he's doing just fine. And, he just decided not to participate in open runs because he's the type of psycho that would rather get up 10,000 shots in a gym by himself with no music going. Hopefully we'll err on the side of cautious optimism that that's what's going on behind the scenes for now. Other thing that I wanted to mention here, Jock Landale, so unfortunate for him. He was nursing an ankle injury already. And I don't actually know off the top of my head if he re-aggravated the same ankle, if it was his other ankle that he hurt in FIBA action, though. But he was playing for the Boomers, Team Australia, and he messed up his ankle, something fierce, carried off to the locker room, did not look great. However, there's nothing, he did have an MRI taken the very next day, and there was nothing of major concern reported back. So, maybe it might mean he's going to miss like a month or so of action from now into, maybe it cuts into training camp a little bit, give or take. Those ankle injuries can be tough though, right? Coming back from an ankle injury, you come back a little bit too soon. You're susceptible to a re-injury, a re-aggravation, all that kind of stuff. So fingers crossed that this doesn't impact Jock Landale's timeline to where he'll still be available for the beginning of preseason at least, and going into the regular season, and that he doesn't actually miss any time. But on the off chance that Jock Landale might not be ready to go for the start of the regular season, that could be and could lead to a world where Cam Whitmore is actually able to get some regular season run in the early going before the Rockets rotation kind of fills back out and those minutes get soaked back up by Jock Landale. Because if Jock Landale is not able to play to start the year, then the Rockets are going to be using a lot of Sengun, some Jabari, maybe some Jeff Green at the 5 a little bit. But I think it opens up some additional minutes possibly where you just run a little bit more small ball with Jabari at the 5. Maybe you increase his minutes as the backup 5 rather than allocating them to, all of Jock's minutes to Jeff Green or whatever. And I think that maybe gives an opportunity to Cam Whitmore to get anywhere from, 8 to 10 minutes a night right out of the gate, rather than kind of being forced to ride the bench or getting sent down to the G League right out of the gate for the Rockets. If anything, Cam's probably going to spend a little bit of time with the team at the NBA level, whether he's playing or not. He might get some garbage time minutes here and there, and he'll probably be with the team to start the year before getting sent down to the G League. That way he can kind of see how Ime wants things. He can be in those practices, all that stuff, before getting sent down to the G League. So it's not going to be like opening night and Cam Whitmore's not even in the building or anything. That's not how the Rockets tend to do it with their young players. But obviously wishing a very speedy recovery to Jock Landale. He's going to be an important part of what the Rockets want to be able to try and accomplish this next season. So prayers up for him, and hopefully that ankle injury is healing up rather quickly. But on that note, that's going to do it for today's show. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show, whether you're on the podcast feeds, Apple, Spotify, Google, the Odyssey app, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're tuning in via YouTube, you can find it there. Just search Locked on Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, let us know in the comments, what 3 games are you most looking forward to this next season for your Houston Rockets? But as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.